Tonight, as you settle into the gentle embrace of your pillow and pull the covers close, I want to take you somewhere far from the worries of the day. Somewhere where the ocean whispers ancient secrets and the moonlight dances on endless waves. This is a story that's been waiting for you. A tale that will carry you softly into the realm of dreams. Before we begin, take a moment to let your breathing slow down. Feel your shoulders relax. Let your jaw unclench and allow your mind to drift like a ship setting sail toward peaceful waters. Tonight's journey will unfold slowly, like the tide itself, washing away the tension of the day and replacing it with wonder. Our story begins in a time when the world was wilder, when maps had edges marked with dragons, and the ocean held mysteries that no scholar could explain. In those days, sailors spoke in hushed tones about creatures of legend, about islands that appeared only under certain moons, and about the thin veil between what was known and what was magical. The Caribbean Sea stretched like liquid sapphire under the morning sun, its surface barely disturbed by the gentle trade winds that had blown ships across these waters for centuries. It was here, in this vast expanse of blue, that Captain Elena Marquez commanded her vessel with the quiet confidence of someone born to the sea. Her ship, the Celestial Dawn, cut through the waves with grace, its white sails billowing like clouds against the endless sky. Elena was not your typical pirate captain. While others in her profession were known for their ruthless pursuit of gold and their thunderous battles, she had earned her reputation through different means. Her crew followed her not out of fear, but out of respect. She possessed an almost supernatural ability to read the moods of the ocean, to sense when storms were brewing beyond the horizon, and to find safe harbors when others saw only treacherous coastlines. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the deck as Elena stood at the helm, her weathered hands steady on the wheel. Her dark hair was braided with small shells and pieces of sea glass that caught the light like captured stars. She wore a coat of deep blue velvet, practical yet elegant, and her boots were worn smooth by countless hours on deck. But it was her eyes that truly marked her as different. They held the depth of someone who had seen wonders beyond imagination, and the gentle wisdom of someone who understood that the greatest treasures were not always made of gold. Below the surface of those same sparkling waters, in a realm where sunlight filtered down in shimmering columns and coral gardens bloomed in impossible colors, lived Nerida. She was a mermaid of extraordinary beauty, but more than that, she was a keeper of the ocean's most precious secrets. Her tail shimmered with scales that shifted from deep emerald to silver, depending on how the light caught them, and her hair flowed like liquid moonlight, adorned with pearls that had taken decades to form in the deepest trenches. Nerida's home was a palace of coral and crystal, built into a seamount that rose from the ocean floor like an underwater mountain. The walls were alive with bioluminescent creatures that provided a soft, ever-changing glow, and gardens of sea anemones swayed gently in the currents. Schools of tropical fish moved through the corridors like living rainbows, and the sound of whale songs echoed through the chambers like distant music. For years, Nerida had watched the ships pass overhead, their dark silhouettes cutting across her view of the surface world. She had seen vessels of every kind, from massive galleons heavy with cargo to swift sloops racing before the wind. But she had always kept her distance, following the ancient laws of her people that forbade contact with those who lived above the waves. The merfolk had good reason for their caution. Throughout history, There had been times when the two worlds had met, and the results had often been tragic. Humans, in their fear and greed, had hunted the merfolk, seeking to capture their magic for themselves. And some merfolk, drunk on their own power over the seas, had used their gifts to lure ships to their destruction. The separation between the worlds had been maintained for centuries, a delicate balance that kept both peoples safe. But Nerida had always been different from her sisters. While they were content to tend their gardens and sing with the whales, she felt drawn to something beyond the safety of the depths. She would often swim to the shallows near coral reefs, close enough to the surface that she could see the play of sunlight on the waves above. Sometimes, when the moon was full and the sea was calm, she would even allow her head to break the surface, breathing the strange thin air and gazing up at the star-filled sky. It was during one of these secret journeys that fate brought Elena and Nerida together. The celestial dawn had been sailing for weeks, following rumors of a Spanish treasure fleet that had been lost in a storm decades earlier. Elena's research had led her to believe that the ships had foundered near a chain of small islands that appeared on only the oldest charts, islands that seemed to shift their position depending on the tides and the phase of the moon. As the afternoon sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and coral, Elena noticed something unusual in the water ahead. The sea, which had been a uniform blue-green, suddenly shifted to a brilliant turquoise that seemed to glow from within. Her experienced eye told her that this meant shallow water ahead, but her charts showed nothing but deep ocean in this area. She called for her crew to reduce sail and prepared to investigate. The ship slowed to barely more than drifting speed as Elena peered over the rail, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Below the crystal-clear water, she could make out what looked like structures, shapes too regular to be natural coral formations. Towers and walls seemed to rise from the seafloor, covered in growths that sparkled in the filtered sunlight. It was then that she saw her, a figure moving with fluid grace among the underwater ruins, too far below to make out clearly, but unmistakably not human in the way she moved through the water. Elena's breath caught in her throat as the figure seemed to sense her presence and looked up toward the surface. For a moment that seemed to stretch like eternity, their eyes met across the barrier of water and air. Elena saw intelligence in that gaze, and something else that she couldn't quite name. Wonder, perhaps, or recognition. The figure below remained perfectly still, suspended in the water like a dancer frozen mid-performance. Then, with a movement like quicksilver, Nerida vanished into the depths, leaving Elena staring at empty water and wondering if she had imagined the entire encounter. But the image remained burned in her memory. The flowing hair, the graceful movement, and most of all, those eyes that had seemed to look directly into her soul. Elena stood at the rail long after her crew had moved on to other tasks, watching the play of light on the water and feeling as though something fundamental had shifted in her understanding of the world. She had spent her life on the sea, had weathered storms that would terrify lesser sailors, and had seen wonders that most people could never imagine. But this was different. This felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Below the waves, Nerida swam back to her palace, with her heart racing in a way she had never experienced before. She had broken every rule of her people by allowing herself to be seen, but she couldn't bring herself to regret it. There had been something in the woman's eyes, a recognition that spoke of kindred spirits across the vast divide between their worlds. The encounter haunted both of them as the day faded into evening. Elena found herself unable to focus on her charts or her plans for the treasure hunt. Instead, she stood on deck as the stars emerged, one by one, wondering if she would ever see those mysterious eyes again. And far below, Nerida lay in her chamber of coral and pearl, staring up through the water at the distant lights of the ship, feeling for the first time in her long life that she might have found something worth risking everything for. The stage was set for a love story that would challenge everything both women believed about their worlds, about the boundaries between sea and sky, and about the power of connection to bridge even the deepest divides. But that is a tale that will unfold slowly, like the tide itself, carrying us gently toward dreams of wonder and possibility. Wonder and possibility. The moon rose like a silver coin tossed into the velvet sky, casting a pathway of light across the restless waters. Elena found herself drawn to the deck again and again throughout the night, unable to shake the memory of what she had witnessed. Her crew, seasoned sailors all, noticed their captain's distraction, but knew better than to question her moods. They had learned to trust her instincts, even when those instincts led them into waters that defied explanation. As the hours passed, Elena began to wonder if the encounter had been nothing more than a trick of light and shadow, a mirage born of too many days at sea. But deep in her bones, she felt the truth of what she had seen. The sea had revealed one of its secrets to her, and she knew that such revelations were not given lightly. Meanwhile, in the depths below, Nerida found herself equally restless. She swam through her coral halls, past the sleeping chambers of her sisters, beyond the gardens where seahorses danced in the gentle currents. The familiar beauty of her underwater realm felt somehow different now, as if she were seeing it through new eyes. The palace that had been her entire world suddenly seemed small, confined, a beautiful prison of coral and pearl. She thought of the woman on the ship above, of the strength she had sensed in that brief moment of connection. There had been something in the human's bearing that spoke of courage and independence, qualities that Nerida admired but had rarely seen in her own sheltered existence. The merfolk lived lives of quiet harmony, following ancient traditions and avoiding the chaos of the surface world. But for the first time, that harmony felt like stagnation. The next morning brought crystalline waters and a gentle breeze that barely filled the sails of the celestial dawn. Elena had made a decision during the sleepless hours of the night. Instead of continuing her search for the treasure fleet, she ordered her ship to remain in the area where the underwater ruins lay hidden. She told her crew they were waiting for better winds, but in truth, she was hoping for another glimpse of the mysterious figure she had seen. Her first mate, a grizzled man named Santos, who had sailed with her for over a decade, approached her with obvious concern. "Captain," he said carefully, "the men are beginning to whisper. This isn't like you to delay a hunt without good reason." Elena looked out over the tranquil waters, her fingers drumming against the ship's rail. "Sometimes, Santos, the greatest treasures are the ones we never thought to look for," she replied. "Trust me a little longer." Santos nodded, though his weathered face remained troubled. He had followed Elena through battles with rival pirates, through storms that had torn ships apart like paper dolls, and through political intrigues that could have seen them all hanged. If she asked for his trust now, she would have it, even if he didn't understand her reasoning. Below the surface, Nerida was facing her own moment of decision. Since dawn, she had felt an irresistible pull toward the surface, toward the ship that waited above like a promise of adventure. She had never defied the laws of her people so openly, but something had awakened in her that could not be silenced. As the sun reached its zenith, painting the water in shades of liquid gold, Nerida made her choice. She swam upward through the layers of light and shadow, past schools of fish that parted before her like living curtains, past the coral formations that marked the boundaries of her safe world. Her heart hammered as she approached the surface, but she did not turn back. Elena was alone on deck when the water beside her ship began to shimmer and part. She gripped the rail as a figure emerged from the depths, rising from the sea like something from a dream. Water cascaded from silver hair as Nerida broke the surface, her tail keeping her effortlessly afloat as she looked up at the ship with eyes the color of deep ocean currents. For a long moment, neither moved. The world seemed to hold its breath as human and mermaid regarded each other across the small distance that separated their realms. Elena felt her understanding of reality shift and reshape itself around this impossible sight. Everything she had thought she knew about the world crumbled and reformed in the space of a heartbeat. "I wondered if you would return," Elena said softly, her voice carrying easily across the still water. She was surprised by her own calmness, by the way her fear had been replaced by something that felt remarkably like recognition. Nerida's voice, when she spoke, was like music made of water and wind. "I wondered if I was brave enough to try." Her words carried an accent that Elena couldn't place, something that spoke of depths and currents and songs that had never known the touch of air. "What is your name?" Elena asked, leaning forward against the rail. "Nerida," came the reply, and the name seemed to shimmer in the air between them like a pearl catching sunlight. "And you are the captain of this vessel?" "I am. My name is Elena." She paused, studying the creature before her, with eyes that had learned to read the moods of wind and wave. "I've heard stories, legends of your people, but I never thought that we were real." Nerida's laugh was like the sound of waves washing over smooth stones. "We tell the same stories about your kind, ships that sail without touching the seafloor, people who breathe air as easily as we breathe water. Until yesterday, I thought they were merely tales to entertain the young." Elena found herself smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in weeks. "And now I think perhaps the most beautiful stories are the ones that turn out to be true." The conversation flowed as naturally as the tide, two souls discovering that the barriers between their worlds were not as insurmountable as they had believed. Elena learned that Nerida was something called a deep singer, a keeper of the ocean's memories and secrets. Nerida discovered that Elena was not the ruthless pirate that surface legends might suggest, but an explorer and scholar who had chosen the freedom of the sea over the constraints of land-based society. As they talked, the sun moved across the sky, but neither seemed aware of the passing time. Elena found herself sharing stories of her adventures, of storms weathered and islands discovered, of the loneliness that sometimes came with command. Nerida spoke of the songs that could calm hurricanes, of gardens that bloomed in the deepest trenches, of the weight of expectations that came with being guardian of ancient knowledge. "Do you ever wonder," Nerida asked as the afternoon light began to deepen, "what it would be like to walk on solid ground, to feel earth beneath your feet instead of water?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I've walked on land," she said. "I was born there, raised in a fishing village on the coast of Spain, but I always felt like I was drowning in the stillness of it. The sea called to me from the time I was old enough to understand what the horizon meant. And do you ever wish you could know what lies beneath the waves? To swim through forests of kelp, to see the cities we've built in the deep places? Every sailor dreams of such things, Elena admitted. But we tell ourselves they're impossible dreams. Nereda's tail flicked thoughtfully in the water, sending ripples across the surface. Perhaps, she said slowly, impossibility is just another word for something we haven't figured out yet. As the conversation continued, both women began to realize that they stood at a crossroads that would define not just their own futures, but possibly the relationship between their two peoples. The attraction between them was undeniable, but it was more than physical beauty that drew them together. They recognized in each other the same restless spirit, the same hunger for knowledge and adventure that had made them both outcasts in their respective worlds. The sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon when Elena made an impulsive decision. "Would you like to come aboard?" she asked. "Just for a moment. I could help you up, and you could see what my world looks like from the deck of a ship." Nereda's eyes widened with a mixture of excitement and fear. No mermaid had ever set foot or tail on a human vessel, as far as she knew. It would be another violation of the ancient laws, another step further from the safety of tradition. But looking up at Elena's outstretched hand, she realized that safety had never felt more like a cage. "Yes," she whispered, and the word carried with it the weight of 1,000 possible futures. Elena lowered a rope ladder over the side and with careful movements helped Nerida pull herself up onto the deck. The mermaid's powerful tail provided surprising leverage, and soon she was sitting on the sun-warmed planks, her silver scales catching the light like scattered coins. For Nerida, the sensation was overwhelming. The solid feel of the ship beneath her, the way the air moved differently above the water, the complexity of rigging and sails that had only been abstract shapes from below. And Elena, who had seemed mysterious and distant from the water, was now close enough to touch, close enough that Nerida could see the small scars on her hands from years of rope work, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, inkled when she smiled. Elena knelt beside Nerida on the deck, careful to stay within arm's reach in case the mermaid needed help returning to the water. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ship, and the gentle rocking motion seemed to lull both women into a state of peaceful wonder. Nerida's scales caught the golden light like a living mosaic, and Elena found herself mesmerized by the way they seemed to shift color with each breath the mermaid took. "Your world moves," Nerida observed, her voice filled with amazement as she felt the ship sway beneath her. "Everything below the waves is constant, flowing, but never changing position. This feels like riding a great whale, but with purpose and direction." Elena laughed softly, settling cross-legged on the deck beside her unexpected guest. "I've never thought of it that way, but you're right. The sea teaches you to move with forces greater than yourself. You can't fight the ocean and win, so you learn to dance with it instead." Nerida reached out tentatively to touch the smooth wood of the deck, running her fingers along the grain. Her movements were graceful even here, out of her natural element, and Elena noticed how quickly she adapted to the different balance required on the ship. "This came from trees," she said wonderfully. "I've seen them from far below when they fall into the water, but to think that they could become something like this, something that carries dreams across the surface." "Every ship has a soul," Elena said, watching Nerida explore her surroundings with childlike curiosity. "At least, that's what the old sailors believe. The wood remembers being alive, remembers growing toward the sun, and when you shape it into a vessel, it wants to chase that light again, across the water. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the companionway. Santos appeared at the top of the stairs, carrying a bundle of charts under his arm. He stopped short when he saw Nerida, his weathered face cycling through expressions of shock, disbelief, and something that might have been terror. "Captain," he said slowly, his voice carefully controlled, "I was coming to discuss our course for tomorrow, but I see you're entertaining a guest." Elena rose smoothly to her feet, positioning herself protectively between Santos and Nerida. "Santos, I'd like you to meet Nerida. She's been kind enough to visit our ship." Santos's eyes remained fixed on Nerida's tail, which shimmered in the afternoon light like captured starlight. "With respect, Captain, I've sailed these waters for 30 years, and I know a siren when I see one. The lads below are already nervous about staying in these waters. If they see this, then they'll learn that the stories they've heard are incomplete," Elena said firmly. "Nerida is not here to harm anyone. She's here because sometimes the sea offers gifts to those wise enough to accept them." Nerida had been following the exchange with growing understanding. She could sense the older man's fear, could see how his hand instinctively moved toward the knife at his belt. This was exactly what her people had warned against, the reason the ancient laws existed. Humans feared what they didn't understand, and fear made them dangerous. "I should return to the water," she said softly, beginning to move toward the rail. "I've already stayed longer than I intended." "No," Elena said quickly, then turned to Santos with an expression that brooked no argument. "Santos, you've followed me through situations that would have broken lesser men. You've trusted my judgment when it defied common sense, and it's never led us astray. I'm asking for that trust now." The old sailor looked between his captain and the mermaid, his internal struggle visible on his weathered features. Finally, he set down his charts and approached cautiously. "If you vouch for her, Captain, then I'll hold my peace. But if the crew sees her, there'll be questions I can't answer. Then we'll make sure they don't see her," Elena replied. "At least not until they're ready to understand what they're seeing." Santos nodded reluctantly and retreated below decks, though Elena noticed how he kept glancing back over his shoulder. She turned to find Nerida watching her with an expression of profound gratitude. "You defended me," Nerida said, wonder evident in her voice, "even though it meant challenging someone you clearly trust and respect." Elena settled back down beside her, closer this time. "My crew follows me because they believe I can see things others can't. Sometimes that means spotting a storm before it hits. Sometimes it means finding safe harbor in dangerous waters. Today, it means recognizing that you're not a threat to be feared, but a miracle to be treasured." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications that neither was quite ready to name. Nerida felt something stir in her chest, an emotion she had no word for in her people's language. Among the merfolk, relationships were arranged by the elders, based on bloodlines and magical compatibility. The idea of choosing one's own heart's companion, of being drawn to someone across species barriers, was so foreign that it felt revolutionary. "Tell me about your crew," Nerida said, partly to distract herself from the intensity of her feelings. "How does someone like you come to command a ship full of men who clearly adore you?" Elena smiled, and for a moment, her carefully maintained captain's composure slipped to reveal something more vulnerable underneath. "It wasn't easy. When I first took to the sea, I had to prove myself twice as hard as any man. I had to be stronger, smarter, more ruthless when necessary. But eventually, They stopped seeing me as a woman trying to do a man's job and started seeing me as simply the best captain they'd ever sailed with. She gestured toward the rigging, where several crew members were visible, making repairs and adjustments. Most of them are outcasts like me, men who didn't fit in the traditional world, who found family on the water. We've been through battles together, storms that should have killed us, moments of triumph that felt like touching the face of God. They follow me because I've never asked them to go anywhere I wouldn't go first. Nerida listened with rapt attention, trying to imagine the kind of life Elena described. Among her people, leadership was inherited, not earned. The idea of proving oneself through deed and courage, rather than birth, was intoxicating. And you've never wanted to settle down, to find a safe harbor and rest? I thought I did once, Elena admitted, her voice growing softer. There was a man in Port Royal, a merchant who offered me a comfortable life on land, a house with a garden, security, respectability. I tried it for almost a year. What happened? I woke up one morning and realized I was suffocating. The walls felt like a prison. The routine felt like a slow death. I could hear the sea calling to me from the harbor, and I knew that if I stayed, I would wither away like a plant kept too long from the sun. Elena turned to look directly at Nerida, and something passed between them that felt like recognition, like coming home after a long journey. What about you? Have you ever felt trapped by the expectations of your world? Nerida's laugh was bitter, tinged with years of suppressed longing. Every day, I'm the youngest deep singer in 3 generations, gifted with abilities that my people consider sacred. I'm expected to spend my life in meditation and study, preserving the old songs and the ancient knowledge. But sometimes I feel like I'm a librarian in a tomb, surrounded by beautiful things that no one will ever see or use. She gestured toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to paint the sky in shades of coral and gold. I've dreamed of this world since I was old enough to understand that it existed. The freedom to choose your own path, to sail wherever the wind takes you, to wake up each morning, not knowing what wonders the day might bring. As if drawn by an invisible force, they found themselves moving closer together. Elena's hand reached out to touch Nerida's arm, marveling at the warmth of her skin, so different from what she had expected. Nerida's eyes fluttered closed at the contact, overwhelmed by the sensation of human touch. "This is impossible," Nerida whispered, but she made no move to pull away. "I've made a career of proving that impossible things are just challenges waiting to be solved," Elena replied, her thumb tracing gentle circles on Nerida's skin. The moment stretched between them, fragile and precious as sea glass. Around them, the ship continued its gentle rocking motion, and the crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency, unaware that their captain was falling in love with a creature from their deepest myths. But the spell was broken by a shout from the crow's nest. "Sail ho! 3 points off the starboard bow!" Elena was on her feet instantly, her captain's instincts overriding everything else. She grabbed a spyglass from the nearby rail and trained it on the horizon, where 3 dark shapes were emerging from the afternoon haze. "Spanish war galleons," she muttered, recognizing the distinctive silhouettes, flying the colors of the treasure fleet. Santos appeared at her elbow, as if summoned by her words. "The same fleet we've been hunting. Has to be. But what are they doing in these waters?" Elena continued to study the approaching ships, noting their formation and the way they were handling their sails. Something was wrong with the picture, but she couldn't quite identify what. Nerida had pulled herself to the rail and was also watching the approaching vessels with growing alarm. Her enhanced senses allowed her to perceive details that even Elena's experienced eye might miss. "Those ships," she said urgently, "they're not sailing normally. Look at how low they sit in the water and the way their sails hang." Elena refocused her spyglass and felt her blood run cold. Narita was right. The ships were listing heavily, their sails torn and barely functional. This wasn't a treasure fleet in fighting condition. This was a fleet in distress, possibly fleeing from something even worse than pirates. "All hands on deck," Elena shouted, her voice carrying the authority that had commanded respect across the Caribbean. "Prepare for possible engagement, but keep the guns covered. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." As her crew sprang into action with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance, Elena turned back to Nerida with anguish in her eyes. "You need to get back to the water. If those are Spanish warships, even damaged ones, they'll have enough firepower to sink us if they think we're a threat." But Nerida shook her head, her expression resolute. "Not yet. Something's wrong here. Something more than just battle damage. Let me listen to the water, see if I can sense what's happened to them." She closed her eyes and placed her hands flat on the deck, as if trying to feel vibrations through the ship's wood. Elena watched in fascination as Nerida seemed to enter a trance-like state, her breathing becoming deep and rhythmic. "There's something in the water around those ships," Nerida said finally, her eyes still closed. "Something dark and hungry. It's not natural, not part of the ocean's normal rhythms. Those ships aren't just damaged, Captain. They're being hunted." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening breeze beginning to stir across the deck. In all her years at sea, she had learned to trust the subtle warnings that experienced sailors develop. And right now, every instinct she possessed was screaming danger. The approaching ships were close enough now that she could see figures moving on their decks, and what she saw made her stomach clench with dread. The crews were working frantically, not with the purposeful efficiency of seasoned sailors, but with the desperate energy of men who knew they were running out of time. "Santos," she called, never taking her eyes off the approaching fleet. "Signal the crew to battle stations, but keep our colors down. I want to know what we're dealing with before we declare ourselves." As the sun continued its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in increasingly dramatic shades of orange and purple, Elena realized that her peaceful afternoon with Nerida had just become something far more complicated and dangerous. Whatever was hunting those Spanish ships might soon turn its attention to the celestial dawn, and she would have to make decisions that could determine not just the fate of her crew, but the future of the impossible love story that had just begun to bloom between two very different worlds. The stage was set for an encounter that would test everything Elena and Nerida had discovered about each other, and about the courage required to protect what matters most when darkness rises from the depths of the sea itself. The Spanish ships drew closer with each passing moment, their damaged hulls cutting through the water with the desperation of wounded animals fleeing a predator. Elena could now make out individual figures on the decks, men pointing frantically in their direction and shouting orders that carried across the water in fragments of Spanish that the wind scattered before they could be understood. Nerida remained motionless beside the rail, her hands still pressed against the ship's wood as if she were listening to a conversation only she could hear. Her face had grown pale, and when she finally opened her eyes, Elena saw something there that made her blood run cold. It was fear, but not the simple fear of danger that any rational creature might feel. This was something deeper, more primal, the kind of terror that came from recognizing an ancient enemy. "It's following them," Nerida said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something that should not exist in these waters. Something that my people thought was destroyed centuries ago." Before Elena could ask what she meant, a new sound reached them across the water. It was like nothing the experienced captain had ever heard, a low thrumming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was felt as much as heard, vibrating through the ship's hull and into the bones of everyone aboard. Several crew members stopped their work to look around in confusion, their faces showing the kind of unease that comes when the familiar world suddenly feels alien and threatening. The lead Spanish galleon was close enough now that Elena could see the terror on the faces of its crew. These were not men fleeing from pirates or storm damage. These were sailors who had encountered something that challenged their understanding of the natural world, something that had shaken them to their very souls. "Captain!" The cry came from her lookout in the crow's nest. Something in the water behind the Spanish ships. "It's... God help me, Captain. I don't know what it is." Elena raised her spyglass again, focusing on the churning wake behind the fleeing vessels. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just the normal disturbance that any ship would leave in its passage. But then the water began to change, taking on a dark, oily quality that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Within that darkness, shapes moved with purposes that defied the random motion of waves and current. "Kraken," Nerida breathed, and the word fell into the afternoon air like a stone dropped into still water. Elena had heard the legends, of course. Every sailor had. Stories of massive creatures that could drag entire ships into the depths, tentacles thick as tree trunks and eyes like burning coals. But like most experienced seafarers, she had dismissed such tales as the fantasies of men who had spent too long at sea, their minds addled by salt and solitude. "I thought they were myths," Elena said, though even as the words left her mouth, she could see evidence to the contrary rising from the dark water behind the Spanish fleet. "Not myths," Nerida replied, her voice tight with ancient knowledge. "Guardians, created by the deep magic during the war between our peoples and something far worse than humans or merfolk. They were supposed to sleep until the end of time, bound by songs that my ancestors died to weave." The first tentacle broke the surface like a tower rising from the depths, easily as thick as the mainmast of Elena's ship, and covered in suckers the size of shields. More followed, creating a forest of writhing flesh that reached toward the fleeing Spanish vessels with deliberate, terrifying intelligence. Elena's crew had stopped all pretense of normal ship operations now, standing frozen at their posts as they witnessed something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. The bravest among them had faced battles with rival pirates, had weathered hurricanes that could tear a ship apart. But this was something beyond their experience or understanding. "We have to help them," Elena said, though she had no idea how her single ship could make a difference against something of such impossible size and power. "No," Nerida said urgently, grabbing Elena's arm with surprising strength. "If you try to fight it directly, you'll only give it more targets. The creature is ancient, driven by instincts older than civilization, but there might be another way." She turned to face Elena fully, her eyes blazing with determination, and something that looked like desperate hope. The binding songs that held it in sleep, they were woven by deep singers, like me. If I can remember the harmonies, if I can reach the deep places where the old magic still flows. You're talking about using magic, Elena said, trying to process the implications of what Narita was suggesting. That's impossible. Narita's smile was sad but determined. I thought we had already established that impossibility was just another word for something we hadn't figured out yet. The Kraken had fully emerged now, its massive bulk dwarfing even the largest of the Spanish galleons. Elena could see that it was toying with its prey, using its tentacles to lift one of the smaller vessels partially out of the water before setting it down again, like a cat playing with a mouse before the kill. "What do you need?" Elena asked, making her decision with the same quick instinct that had kept her alive through countless dangerous situations. "I need to be in the water, as deep as I can safely go while still maintaining contact with your ship. And I need you to trust me completely, even when what I'm doing seems to make no sense." Elena looked at her crew, saw the fear and confusion in their faces as they watched the impossible scene unfolding before them. These men had followed her into situations that would have terrified most people, but this was something beyond the scope of normal human courage. "Santos," she called to her first mate, "bring the ship about, but keep us well clear of that thing, and lower a rope line over the starboard side, secured to the mainmast." Santos approached with the careful steps of a man walking on thin ice. "Captain, with respect, what exactly are you planning?" Elena looked at Narita, who was already moving toward the rail with fluid grace, despite her unfamiliarity with the ship's motion. Something that would sound insane if I tried to explain it. "Just trust me, old friend. Have I ever steered us wrong before?" The answer to that question was no, and Santos knew it. He began shouting orders to the crew, who responded with the automatic obedience of men who had learned that quick action often meant the difference between life and death at sea. Narita paused at the rail, looking back at Elena with an expression that mixed determination with something that might have been love. "If this works, we'll have time to explore what's growing between us. If it doesn't, it will work," Elena said firmly, though she had no idea what it actually was. "I don't know how I know that, but I do." Narita nodded and slipped over the side with a splash that was barely audible over the increasing sounds of chaos from the direction of the Spanish fleet. Elena watched her disappear beneath the surface, then reappear a moment later, grasping the rope line that Santos had rigged. "I'm going to sing now," Narita called up to her. "The song will be in the old tongue, and it may sound frightening to human ears. Whatever happens, don't let your men interfere." With that, she took a deep breath and dove beneath the surface, playing out the rope as she descended into the blue-green depths. Elena could see her pale form moving through the water like a ghost made of moonlight, going deeper than any human could survive. Then the song began. It started as a vibration, felt rather than heard, a thrumming that seemed to come from the ocean itself. Gradually, it became audible, rising from the depths in harmonies that no human throat could produce. The melody was alien and beautiful, touching something primal in Elena's chest that made her want to weep and soar at the same time. The effect on the Kraken was immediate and dramatic. The massive creature stopped its play with the Spanish ships, its tentacles freezing in mid-motion, as if suddenly listening to something it had not heard for centuries. Its great head, previously hidden beneath the surface, broke through the waves to reveal eyes the size of wagon wheels, ancient and intelligent, and filled with something that might have been recognition. Elena's crew stood transfixed as the song continued, growing stronger and more complex with each passing moment. Some of the men were weeping openly, though they probably couldn't have said why. Others stood with expressions of wonder, as if they were witnessing the birth of the world itself. The Spanish sailors had also stopped their frantic activity, their ships drifting as officers and crew alike listened to the impossible music rising from the depths. Elena could see them pointing at her ship, probably wondering what new form of supernatural intervention had arrived to complicate their already impossible situation. But the Kraken was the focus of the song's power. As the melody reached a crescendo that seemed to encompass every frequency the human ear could detect, and many it could not, the massive creature began to change. Its movements became less aggressive, more rhythmic, as if it were dancing to music only it could fully appreciate. And so, as the ancient song fades into the gentle rhythm of waves against the shore, our tale draws to its peaceful close. Elena and Nerida found that love truly can bridge any divide, that courage and compassion together can calm even the most fearsome storms. Let their story carry you now into dreams of endless possibility, where mermaids sing beneath starlit waters and brave hearts find their way to each other across impossible distances. Sleep well, dear listener, and may your own dreams be filled with wonder.